Are you studying for your MCAT and you hate your life? Everyone wants to know what they should be doing when they're studying for the MCAT. But today we're gonna be talking about some of the things you're probably doing wrong. I kind of wanted to set up my video in chronological order. So from content review and studying phase all the way until you're taking full lengths up to the actual day of the exam. As we all know, the MCAT is a long, complicated, annoying test, okay? And that's why I make a lot of the videos that I do. I was a first-gen student. Well, I guess I still am a first-gen student. And I didn't really have much of a foundation in getting into medical school and what that even meant. I had to figure out a lot of the steps along the way while I actually did them. So I started my channel in order to help students that are also confused, like I was and am, I guess. If this exam is humbling you like it humbled me, then stay tuned so that we can talk about some of the things that hopefully we can fix together. I actually talked about this one recently, but number one is during the content review phase, do not skip over material because you don't like it or because you're bad at it, but do spend more time on material that you hate and you think you're really bad at. This is what I call the worst case method, and it's when you really spend your days centering in and focusing more on material that you think you're really bad at and material that you think to yourself, if I get this certain topic or this set of questions on my exam, I'm gonna do horribly. And those are the things that you should really spend the most time on when you're doing content review, because it gives you an understanding of the things that you're least familiar with. I'm gonna be very honest. My least favorite section was biochem when I was studying for the exam, and that was something that I just dreaded studying so much. Even something as simple as mitosis and meiosis, reviewing that would give me such a migraine that I would just avoid it at all costs. Not because it was a hard topic necessarily, but just because I disliked it. And when I actually had questions where I had to actively recall information, I would have a much harder time than the topics I liked and actually enjoyed studying. And don't be like me, because guess what? If you don't want to study mitosis and meiosis, you're gonna have to study it anyway. Sometimes I actually used Jack Weston, even when I was doing content review, to familiarize myself a little bit more with MCAT style questions without necessarily using full lengths, and even before I actually signed up for UWorld, just so I can kind of dip my toes into what the question styles are like. And that is something I would recommend to do. Just look up certain concepts or subjects that you don't consider yourself good at and practice them on Jack Weston, because you just make an account, it's free to sign up, and you have some practice questions that you can use as a guide for the things you might need to study a little bit more. Things like saying, I'll do physics later, I really don't want to deal with that right now, or I'm really good at bio, I'm gonna keep doing it. Those things are gonna affect you in the long run, and that's something I wish I knew, because I kept putting things off, especially in psych soc, and telling myself that I'll know it when the time comes. You're not gonna know it. You don't know it now, you're not gonna know it later. So spend the time, even if you hate it. Honestly, this was usually the first thing I did when I sat down and did content review. I would pick a subject that I hated and just spend at least 30 minutes reviewing that, doing Anki on it, and watching a couple of videos to refresh my mind. On that same note, my second one is, do not convince yourself that you're going to remember everything. Ultimately and eventually, when you start doing full lengths and practice questions, if a question asks you, for example, which amino acid contains a sulfur atom, you want to know that immediately. You want it to be something that you see, you recognize, and you say, oh yeah, I did an Anki card about this, or I know my amino acid structures. Amino acids are something that are so high yield that just by knowing them, their relative pKa's, their structures, you're guaranteed several points. Even if it's not in discrete questions, it's in the passages. So definitely do use Anki for active recall. If you do not like using Anki for active recall, because I know it's not for everyone, there are ways to do active recall on a blank sheet of paper. I've talked about this as well in other videos because I really just love active recall. So you take a blank piece of paper, you write down everything that you know about a certain topic, and then you go back in with a different color and add or remove anything that you missed, maybe things that you got wrong, things that you just think are important that you didn't add. That way you can basically recall information, retrieve information, and actually go back and correct anything that you missed or that you want to add. You want to get to the point where you can see a question and you have an idea. I know what this is going to ask me before you're even done reading the question. I know initially while you're studying for the MCAT and you're doing content review, learning this information, it might feel like you're never going to get there, but I promise you that you're going to get to questions where you're so excited. Like, thank God that this question is asking me about F equals M times A in Chem Phys. Thank God that they're asking me about the Lac-Operon. And there's just things that you're like, boom, easy question. I remember doing this on Anki. Honestly, I don't think Anki is that annoying to use because I watched a couple of videos that really helped me, but I will say that it does get repetitive, and that's the point of it, and it really makes information stick. Everyone learns so differently that you need to see if that's something that you're willing to use. Don't trust yourself. You're not gonna remember that question from 3 months ago on UWorld about, I don't know, voltage. The odds are you're probably never gonna get the same question twice, right? The question that you got on your full length might mimic closely a question that you got on your real MCAT. But the truth is, unless you know the depths of that material and you know it inside and out, there's no way you can apply the concepts to a different format. You could read a whole passage about prokaryotic translation, and then you get a discrete question about the Shine-Dalgarno sequence, and you're gonna be like, huh? Anki is not the only way of making sure that you don't forget information. Another way to retrieve information and to make sure that you don't forget things is to practice writing a formula or equation sheet. So for those of you that don't know, in the first 10 minutes of your MCAT, you have something called a tutorial period that you can choose to accept. You basically have this large pamphlet sort of that they let you write on. I always pull it out because I have it right next to me. So it kind of looks like this. This one's on Amazon. I have it on my storefront in the description box if anybody wants it. This is basically the same exact one that they give you on the MCAT. I talk about this in like every single video, so I'm sorry if this is like your 4th time seeing her. You can write your formulas, amino acids, pKa's, anything that you want to remember, you just throw on there. So I've talked about this as well. This is an example of my formula sheet that I would write and rewrite. I kind of added to it while I was studying. That's something else that you can do if you don't want to just solely rely on your memory. Make a formula sheet. It's very important. The next one I wanted to talk about is do not barely review your full lengths. I've even seen people not review full lengths at all. Full lengths are, in my opinion, one of the most important study strategies that you're going to have when you are studying for your MCAT. That is going to show you your timing skills, ability to retrieve information in a time crunch, how much you know about certain topics, your ability to use process of elimination. It's basically a culmination of everything you've been working on. And by not correctly taking the time to really review the full length and the questions in it, the reason you picked the right answer, the reason you picked the wrong answer, maybe you were running out of time, maybe it was a content gap, maybe you got a question on electrophoresis and you hadn't studied it enough, and actually come up with a reasonable, realistic, and applicable plan for you to review this material. So maybe add new Anki cards, maybe watch a couple of videos, quickly take notes. Remember that content review is never 100% done. You're never in this 250 plus question test, you're never gonna feel like you know all of the material. And that's completely fine. Nobody's expecting you to 100% know all of it, but do your best to not get the same thing wrong twice. And I know that was my goal when I was trying to review these full lengths. So do keep your learning organized. Make sure that you have all of these things written down, kind of like keeping your data. You want to log your data, see what kind of questions you're getting wrong the most. In biochem, let's say, are you getting discrete questions wrong more often? Are you getting passages wrong more often? Is it a certain kind of question that you're getting wrong? Are you getting all of the Lac-Operon questions wrong? So what are things that you really need to focus on? Is it content? Is it timing? Is it understanding the passage? Maybe you're so freaked out about time that there's important information in the passage that you're missing. I know that that would happen to me a lot, that I'd be like, oh my God, I know that I need to use this formula, but where is this other value? And it was literally in the passage. But I was so nervous and I was so anxious that I was missing important information. Around the time it took me to take the full length is probably how long it took me to review it. Everybody has different strategies, whether it's on a piece of paper, whether you make an Excel sheet, whether you want to log your average scores per section, whatever you want to do, it's just so important. It's so crucial. And I really recommend going in depth on those full lengths so that you can improve your score and see what you're missing. Now that we're talking about scores and trying to improve your score, scores. The next don't is do not compare yourself to your friends, but do ask them what it is that they're doing, how you can kind of reach them if their score is higher. Can we study together? Can you explain this topic to me? Or, you know, I took the same full length that you did, but on this section, I did significantly worse. Would you mind reviewing this section with me or showing me your notes or your math? And that way you guys can work together. Gatekeeping information, especially being pre-med, I've talked about this before, is so ugly. Don't be rude. Be nice to people. Give them what you have. If you have mnemonics, if you have an Anki deck that you love and you made and you swear by, share it with your friends, share it with people. There's no need. Be nice to people. Share what you have. Share the PDFs of the textbooks that you're using. Share your notes. Share the YouTubers that you like to watch. You should want the people around you to succeed and be willing to help them. So definitely ask your friends. If they don't want to help you, ask me. I'll help you. Use how your friends are doing as a source of motivation, of guidance. Don't let it tear you down or hinder you from doing your best. A lot of this exam is testing how you handle stressful situations, believe it or not. They want to see who's willing to do this test, sometimes not once, sometimes twice, testing your mentality and how you are as a student and as a future physician, right? Because if you have a patient that's coding in the ER, or if you have a patient that comes in with a sudden stroke alert, you need to rummage through their chart, see if they have a history of strokes. Are they on any anticoagulation? Do you need to get any imaging? Who do you need to consult? These are all things that you need to do very quickly. And thinking ahead, keeping you on your toes and making sure that you are able to think coherently, process the things that you're reading, and come up with a reasonable response. Those are the things that they're looking for. Remember that they want you to be stressed, so don't be fucking stressed. They want you to freak out, so don't freak out. Don't freak out. Anywho, we're chilling, we're fine. It's gonna be fine. Next one is don't skip reviewing a question because you got it right. My roommate Didi actually gave me this one because low-key, I am at fault. Sometimes when I'm reviewing full lengths, we convince ourselves that we know the right answer. Oh, why didn't I pick B? You know, that answer just makes so much more sense. Why didn't I just pick B? Okay, I know it. Next question. No, you don't know it. Go back to the question, review it. If you got the question wrong and you felt like it was obvious, then why'd you pick C? Dummy. That's literally how I would speak to myself, because our brains just want to keep moving forward. More questions, more practice. But we really need to slow ourselves down and say, before I move forward, I need to make sure that I'm 100% with everything that I passed. Otherwise, you're taking 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. Review the information within 1 day so that it's still fresh in your mind. One time, I actually remember that I reviewed a full length almost a full week because I was still taking classes and I didn't have time to review it. I had no idea what anything was talking about anymore. I couldn't remember the passages. I couldn't remember why I picked a certain answer. Couldn't even remember why I used certain formulas. So don't wait too long before you actually review the full length. When you're taking practice tests, let's say I was stuck between answer A and C about some kind of a nucleic acid question, right? If I'm not sure, I would put structure ? And just kind of let myself know when I'm reviewing the test. I was not sure, or I couldn't remember, let's say, the structure of that nucleic acid, and I was stuck between 2 of them. I need you to put a little star, an asterisk, whatever you want to use on your work paper, so that later on when you're reviewing the information, you can say, oh, I got it right, but here I wrote that I was having a hard time with this answer and I was taking way too much time on the question. Maybe I had to guess, maybe I had to skip it. Now, another reason why it's important to review every question, even if you got it right, is because sometimes we guess. Sometimes we just guess right. If you're between A and B and you happen to pick B and it was correct, sometimes you just got lucky. What if you didn't? What if it's the real test and you picked the wrong answer? Make sure that you're reviewing everything as best as possible. Label it. Why did you get it wrong? How could you have gotten it right? To recap everything that I talked about, don't wait to learn material because you hate it, because you're bad at it. Just nip it at the bud. You're gonna have to learn it anyway, and it's better to just do it when you have more time. Don't trust you're gonna remember everything that you see, every question that you do. Use Anki, write it down, make a formula sheet. Just have ways, or maybe a doc. I honestly have a Google Doc with all of my mnemonic devices that I love. So maybe do that, share it with your friends so that they can add their own mnemonics too. 3, don't forget to review your full lengths within a reasonable time frame so that you don't forget the reasoning. 4, don't compare yourself to your friends. Use them to motivate you, to guide you. And if your friends are not cooperating, talk to me about it. Some people just suck. 5th and final one is don't skip reviewing questions just because you got them right. Make sure that you spend time on every question, every answer choice, because you want to learn from your mistakes, but you also want to make sure that you continue to get those things correct. Also, sometimes we get things right for the wrong reasons, and I know that would happen to me often. So sometimes reading the full-length explanations was a lifesaver. And those are just 5 do's and don'ts of MCAT studying that I learned while studying for my MCAT. I did take it twice. If you guys wanted to listen in on some more tips, study methods, or habits that I had while I was taking my MCAT, I have a bunch on my channel. If you found this useful at all, let me know in the comments. I love when you guys comment because it makes me feel good about myself. Okay, bye!